So do you know that I have never, in my life, ever played Scrabble?
Same.
You've never played it?
Never.
You've never played it?
Never touched it, no.
Isn't that weird? I thought I was
Not for
alone.
me, but I have encountered, I realise, many more. We live in it's Scrabble's world.
How
We're
come
just
you've
living
never
in
played it?
We never played it at home when we were kids. I've never played it with anyone.
It's just never happened.
Some people say to me, they're like, oh, that, like,
I really didn't expect you to also have never, ever played
we're a lot
Scrabble.
in common, James. Yeah, we were too busy watching
Isn't that
films.
strange? Because I've done all the other board games.
It is like
and
one of the OG
we had it
ones.
at home and my parents play it. And I just... Because there's Scrabble is in Paddington in Peru, which we'll talk about later. And it got my mind thinking, and it's like it's just never happened. I've used Scrabble pieces to play another game.
What other game of that?
Oh, sometimes like you invent different games using the letters.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, you just freestyle different board games. Like I've used them as a tool, but I've never in my life sat down with people. I'm so surprised that you also haven't done that.
Yeah, I mean, but
We should play a game.
That's a nice Patreon content.
Yeah.
Just us trying to work
Scrabble
out
for the
reading
first time
instructions.
reaction. Me and you thumbnail like,
What? I only played chess for the first time 3 years ago.
That's crazy,
People were
yeah.
surprised,
That's
and I said I've just
surprising.
never had to teach myself it. Very easy actually to teach. I thought chess was really complicated.
easy to learn, hard to master, like all great games.
Oh yes, I do love chess.
It's the greatest game.
It is. You can play it casually, or you can play it like a.
Have you discovered Chess
wine.
YouTube?
No,
Chess
chess.com
YouTube
I
is
have.
brilliant. So you'll have these really good players who go to these go to Bryant Park in New York and play on like the stone sets there, and they do this great thing where they. You obviously can watch the pieces on the board, but it has a digitized version of the game, and it shows you the last move. And they play so quickly, like our silly little brains can't even fathom them. But like 6 minutes long, and you see these really great wars play out. And she plays Grandmasters. She's also very good. It's honestly really entertaining.
I would play chess more, but do you know what the sad thing is, James? I don't have anyone to play it with.
Oh,
I used to play with my girlfriend a bit, but like our time is now more valuable to spend doing. And
if we ever go on a trip together, we should bring a little travel set and just chess it out.
Oh, I'd like
constantly.
that.
That'd be fun.
I'd
Instead of just sitting on our phones.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
might as
we
well-
should.
Like, imagine us interrailing somewhere. We'd bring a little chess set.
The other thing I
and
say about chess is that it's not a social game to play
No,
because
it's quiet.
it's quiet because you focus.
But I think it charges a social battery.
It does, because you're spending time with someone. You have some music on and you just
Yeah.
focus. And
It's
Also,
interactive.
I love playing chess with different people because each new person makes you play in a different way.
Sure.
And I remember I recently played against Anna's uncle. Never played with him before. And he was like, "You are so aggressive in your attack." And I was like, "I had no idea. I thought I was just playing chess." He was like, "You're so aggressive." He won anyway.
Yeah.
But shout out to Peter. How you doing? I have a story for us, James.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So last Friday, I went to a premiere / screening at Tate Modern, by the way. Never been to
Nice.
one there before. They have a screening room there. Who knew?
Yeah. Tate late.
Oh yes, but they had a little cinema screening in there. I'll just explain what I was doing there before I get to the main story. But yes, James was away, so I went to the premiere of this new show on Paramount Plus called Landman, starring Billy Bob Thornton, and it's about basically. It's from the guy who made Yellowstone. It's about you have massive oil corporations, and you have obviously the people working on the oil derricks in Texas, and he's the guy in between who sorts the land and gets the rights and does the dirty work. So the people at the top make the money, and the people on the ground do their job. Interesting. And Billy Bob Thornton, great as ever, doing his 1,000-yard stare. Tate Modern, lovely. Friday night. A bit hard. Sometimes these events are hard to go into on your own, aren't they? I was almost not going to go, but I did do the thing of wandering through the room with a drink in my hand, going, well, no one I recognise here. We'll get my phone out. Maybe I'll pretend to take a photo.
Sort of walk up to someone and be like, "What's your deepest fear?"
I should have done that. I did end up talking to people, which was great. But I also, in my wandering around the room aimlessly, I did knock over a champagne flute with my elbow and it smashed.
To like a sculpture.
Oh, no. Can you imagine?
Dominoes, like in The Mummy with the...
That was the last Barbara Hepworth there was. You just shattered it. No, that didn't happen. Anyway.
Mr. Bean movie Mona Lisa.
Oh, yeah. Whistler's Mother is what it is. You know, when he paints it.
So good.
Wow, that's a deep pull.
Yeah.
Bean, the movie, 1997.
I remember it being hilarious when I saw it in 2004.
Anyway, so then we watch an episode of the show, which, by the way, when we've gone to premieres of TV shows before, there's always a perilous thing that might happen, which is they might show you multiple episodes of a TV show, which is unnecessary. You only need to see one. And thank God, Paramount seemed to have the right idea, because like when we went to the Sexy Beast premiere, they just showed one episode. That's all you need. It's about 50 minutes long. We get the gist. And then at the end, Q&A. Mark Kermode's there, presents. Billy Bob Thornton comes on. Demi Moore, which is really great to see Demi Moore there, because I'm like, it's the substance. And I posted this on Instagram and I said, it must have been Margaret Qualley's week off, because they are one. Yeah. Respect the balance. Yeah, nice. John Hamm was there as well. And it was so interesting contrasting the two types of masculinity of Billy Bob Thornton and John Hamm. Because John Hamm walks into a room and I was like, he has presence. Yeah. He's handsome, he looks great in a suit. Yeah. He's funny, very relaxed.
Doesn't wear underpants.
And I had a bird's eye, no, I didn't have bird's eye, a direct view of John's Hamm. And Billy Bob Thornton, by contrast, who I didn't realise is nearly 70, is like a rock star. He was wearing 2 hats. I've never seen that done before.
How does that work?
He wore a beanie on top of which he wore like a bowler hat. It was really strange. But like the bowler hat you'd expect to wear like a 1920s flapper to wear. And he had a cut-off black sleeveless tee with loads of medallions and necklaces, lots of rings, lots of tattoos on his arms.
That's so cool.
Amazing cowboy boots. He looked rock and roll, and I was like, this guy's seen stuff.
Were you wearing your cowboy boots?
I was not, actually. I didn't wear my cowboy boots.
Do you actually keep them?
In my flat, but they need a bit more of, and my cowboy hat. I need a pride of place somewhere, like a Woody's Roundup kind of thing to sort of put them on. Anyway, it was great watching them interact. Billy Bob Thornton, Sirens on our end, was having this sort of fun interaction with Mark Kermode and saying, "I remember you from Sirens on our end from 30 years ago," and that was sweet. And I've never seen this before. A celebrity wants the Q&A to go on for longer. So Mark Kermode was like, "We're out of time. I've got to wrap you up." And Billy Bob Thornton was like, "Are you fucking renting this place? What's the matter?" And it was like, ha ha ha.
Billy Bob.
Anyway, they went off, which is cool. Anyway, afterwards we spill out into the lobby and there's some drinks there and stuff. And I'm just sort of chatting to these people I met. And I see Billy Bob Thornton come into the room, which is nice. Doesn't always happen, but we have been at places where talent sort of emerge into the room. And so, great. And, obviously they're just surrounded by PRs and stuff. Anyway, I'm chatting to just these people I've just been speaking to. And next thing I know, Billy Bob Thornton is right next to me, inserted himself into our group. And he goes, "Hey guys, just want to say thanks so much for coming tonight. It's really great." Shaking all of our hands. It's really excellent. I didn't smell him. No, that's not. Why is that your first question?
Because based on how you've described it, I think you would have a smell.
I know. I did. Okay, well, I didn't get his smell, James. Okay, but he was like, "Thank you so much." And I said, "Billy, I love your boots." And he went, "Oh, I got these in Santa Fe 25 years ago. They fit like a dream." I said, "Oh, they look amazing." He was like, "Thank you so much. It's a Friday night. Thank you for coming out, guys." I said, "No problem, Billy." It's always like, "All right, take care. See ya." And I was like, how random is it that, like,
he wants to say hi to normies?
When I was going to this event, I thought, I'm going on my own. It's a bit of a drag. Never did I expect, not only would obviously he be in the same room, but he came to me. Came into my presence.
It's almost like he's so confident, secure who he is. He's quite happy to just walk into a thing and go. He's not like Tom Cruise famous, where that might be a problem because loads of people would gather. Yeah. But he's like Billy Bob Thornton, where he's like, I can just go up and say hi. It's on them if they feel weird about it.
And I liked it because also I was like, if someone says, "No, who's the most famous person you've met?" Like
shaking hands with.
Spoken to him. And I was like, Billy Bob Thornton, actually. He came up to me.
Yeah.
He came up to me at some drinks. He didn't mention he was a fan of the show.
Were you like in a closed circle?
No, I was at a cocktail drinks reception, you'd have a high table. I was on the side of that talking to 2 other people. And so the circle, our space was open, quite open. Yeah. And he just like emerged.
There was a gap.
And I wanted to be like, "Why are you wearing 2 hats?"
Sorry, I'm talking.
Yeah. Billy. Also, when I was talking to him, I was like, "Is it Billy Bob Thornton, or is it Billy Bob Thornton?" I just called him Billy. But he was really cool, and that was a nice little moment. And I thought,
cool.
Hey, that's a nice little perk.
That's cool, man.
So, met Billy Bob Thornton, nice guy. And the show was actually not bad, actually. Pretty funny. Actually, funnier than I expected. He is a good actor, and I think he's one of those things that... I think he's done much more TV in the past 10 years than he has film work. He was really good in the first season of Fargo. Yeah. I know he had the show Goliath, but he hasn't been in like a mainstream film for a while. Of course, played the president in Love Actually, remember? Mm-hmm. And obviously, there was the women I was with were just like, he was married to Angelina Jolie. Yeah. And I'm like, like 1,000 years ago.
Still.
Never forget. Yeah. Welcome to episode 155 of Pulp Kitchen. Before we say what we're doing on the show this week, we must say, don't forget to buy your tickets for the Pulp Kitchen Pub Quiz. The 2nd of December has completely sold out. No more room at the inn. So if you'd like to come along, don't forget, Monday, the 9th of December, tickets are still available. love to see you there. But great to have so many people coming already. It's
excited
really
to see it fill
lovely.
up. Going to get that room nice and busy. Quiz questions flying through.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some of the faces of the. Oh, what could that question be? Oh,
that's the most fun thing. Is people going, oh, what is it? And then when you reveal the questions, they're like, oh, I told you. And like some table screaming at someone. Yeah. It's my favourite.
We break up friendships, really. We have scream, but we bring people together.
But you can also redeem yourself later when you know, you're like, oh, it was.
Nothing's better. It's a unique type of special feeling in a pub quiz when you may not have contributed many questions, but to have a deep pull. Yeah, you pull something from the back of your brain and you get it. That's a unique feeling.
You lay dormant for rounds at a time. And then like, oh, I know this.
Camper.
Yeah. And cause sometimes 1 point is the difference between a prize and leaving with your head held in shame.
Last week on the show, we talked about Heretic, the Hugh Grant horror film. This week, we are talking about 3 movies. Again, we're talking about Paddington in Peru. We're talking about new Cillian Murphy movie, Small Things Like These.
Don't forget, guys, we recorded our episode of Double Take this week, our film news show. We talked all about Star Wars announcing another trilogy of Star Wars films, which brings their unannounced Star Wars film tally to 14. We unpacked that and whether or not this is actually going to happen, which ones we want to happen, what we want from Star Wars. Kevin Feige announcing they're stripping back the Marvel releases. We react to that. Wonka 2's happening. So go and get that, as always, on Patreon. The link is in the description. It's the best way to support us and makes a huge difference to what we do. It's a completely different show, and we really enjoy it. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already.
I'd say it's a whole new world, like an Aladdin thing.
Yeah.
People don't know what they're missing. It's
a whole new thing. But go check that out if you want some film newsy bits.
In the meantime, let's get on with some films.
Let's do it.
So, fresh off of his Oscar-winning turn in Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy returns to our screens in Small Things Like These.
He kind of returns to his more gritty roots.
We've said this before, he can be a leading actor, as we saw in Oppenheimer, but he is inherently a fantastic character actor, a great actor all around. And I'm sure this was already in production before Oppenheimer released, that kind of thing. I'm sure there's a crossover. But Small Things Like These is based on the very short novel by Claire Keegan of the same name. Some people even call it a novella. It's directed by Tim Mealance, and it is set in 1985 in a small town in Ireland. And Cillian Murphy plays a coal merchant who services the local town, and obviously is a big part of the community in that he delivers coal to many of the establishments in the town, one of which is a local convent. And it's a how am I describing this film? Sorry, I've seen so many films this week, guys. Bear with me.
It is a film.
It's a film. No, it's a 90-minute film as well, another short one. And Cillian Murphy, on the one hand, is balancing some things that happened in his past that are inherently playing on his mind. It is Christmas time in Ireland. It is approaching. There's lots of festivities and memories being stirred up. He has a family, it's about 5 daughters, and. In working as a coal merchant, he comes home covered in mess, and he has this ritual. The first thing he does, he has to go to the bathroom and wash the coal off his hands, but also can he wash what's happened in the past from his memory? You see,
very good
analogy, symmetry. In carrying out his duties, you encounter religion a lot in his community, but in carrying out his duties, he becomes aware of something that is happening at the local convent. He becomes aware of something that I believe that this isn't a spoiler to say because I think it's kind of in the synopsis, but I would say that if you are familiar with the story of the infamous Magdalen laundries in Ireland, I think that contextual knowledge will help you in this film because it is a film called Small Things Like These, and everything is incredibly small. Small on detail, small on statement. It's all about understatement. And so the central element that in relation to Cillian Murphy's character and the convent has a detail relating to the Magdalen laundries that is dealt with in a very personal, human level. I think it might be helpful just to have a little bit of contextual knowledge personally, because I think although that story is very well known in Ireland, and I think even our previous generations outside of Ireland, but I think younger generations outside of Ireland aren't familiar with that story. So just a little thing on that. Like I said, some elements of his past playing on his mind. And yes, so Small Things Like This, you get it's a film that is small, slow, somber, and understated in its drama. And I think sometimes to its detriment. But like I said, I think it engages in the topic of the Magdalen laundries on a very sort of personal level. So the film succeeds at its best capturing a period of time and a slice of life. This film gets into your bones. It was an incredibly wintry week here last week in the UK, and this film its atmosphere, its time period sort of settles deep within you. It's set in 1985, but it is so brown and bleak and austere that really it could have been set in the early 60s. It's something that's just so plain. There is lovely details about him sitting around the kitchen table with his 5 daughters and his wife, and him toasting, leaning behind him to toast the bread on the stove to then hand to his daughters. Lots of lovely things like that. Great observations about sort of community dynamics. This dirty, bleak sort of the heaviness and the hopelessness of small town life, and there are echoes of, I would say, like Casey Affleck's character in Manchester by the Sea about Cillian Murphy, a man who's wearing the world on his shoulders. And it's worth saying, actually, this is produced by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck as well, amongst other people, but their names appear. And it is that kind of very Catholic thing of guilt, repression, and depression existing upon people. Look, it is no surprise to say that Cillian Murphy is absolutely phenomenal, as he always is. It's another great vehicle for him. As you say, it kind of returns to him to these kind of more gritty, grounded drama that we're used to seeing him in. He gives great face. He gives great character by giving so little in the way he carries his frame. It's brilliant. But he really is one of the finest actors working today. He's also matched by a very good cast. And Emily Watson, in a small supporting role, has a very key scene, extended scene with him in the center of the film. And she is so fierce and telling him one thing but meaning another. And there's this slight standoffish element. She plays the sort of mother superior, head nun of the convent. And that's really great to watch as well. I will say that I don't think it's necessarily for everyone. I think that, like I said, it is so small and understated that at times there were narrative beats that I almost missed, and afterwards I had to go back and say, what was that actually trying to say there? Which sometimes is an element of great drama. For me, it sometimes reminded me of that Seinfeld episode with the low talker, with the person who talks really bad. And you go, sorry? Could you? What? I also want to give a shout out to the child actor who plays the young Cillian Murphy in flashbacks. Again, which even at the first scene you weren't quite aware was a flashback, but he breaks your heart in this. It's really great. So I would say it's solid, impressive in the right way, very sincere, and anchored by great performances. Might be a little bit too small and tight-lipped and understated for some people. I don't think this is a breakthrough. There's no sort of monumental moment or pivotal bit. But if you're a Cillian Murphy fan and you're a fan of tight, sincere dramas like this, you might like
Emily
it.
Watson, a titan. I always think she nails this type of stuff.
She's great.
She's brilliant.
She is
underrated,
amazing.
I think.
I think so too.
Really good.
Whenever she turns up in things, I go, oh yeah, Emily Watson.
On your point earlier, there's something quite nice about films which are maybe set in a certain time period, but feel like there also could be out of time. There are certain settings and probably mostly rural areas that don't carry the aesthetics of time like a city would do.
Yes.
And so there's something quite unique about, and probably quite budget friendly to being able to shoot something like that. But you know what I mean? There's something quite nice about, or like The Holdovers, for example.
Yes.
Like it's not an area that seems to sort of age like the city would do if you're trying to shoot somewhere in London in the 80s. That's going to look really different to London in the 60s.
And also, like, when you're shooting the 80s, it's not about shooting the aesthetic that we think of the 80s as pop 80s, because you've got to remember that people were just living with things that they had owned for years.
Yes. It's not
so
like
everything
renewed
looks
constantly.
like items they'd owned for decades. So it's the 70s, but it's the 60s there. Especially when you're, when dealing with poverty, like in this film. And that's why, everything has a worn out, shabby. The jacket he wears has got sort of splinters and broken bits on the back.
I'm putting Cillian Murphy not because he's similar, but in terms of like what you can do with him. I put him in like on the table next to Joel Edgerton and Chris Pine, because they can lead a film, but also they're a fantastic supporting actor in something.
That's interesting.
Even in bad films.
I wouldn't even say, but Chris Pine I'd say, edges it into leading.
I think he's more leading.
Handsome, right?
Yeah.
Not
So
I mean, they're all handsome men, but you know what I mean? He's kind of got...
it's more of a classic.
He's Captain Kirk.
Handsome. Yeah.
Cillian Murphy will never be Captain Kirk, and Joel Edgerton will never be Captain Kirk.
No.
But I see what you mean. Great, solid, and can do leading work as well. But yeah, like I said, it's very, very short. But
I
left. I left, and I thought, I got on the tube after.
Yeah.
I thought, it's in my soul. I feel like I've really been there.
Yeah.
And I know someone who's read the book, and they say very similarly. Not, it's a short novel.
Frosty.
Not that much in it. It works best as a slice of life in a period of time.
Yeah, there you go. Guys, if you've seen small things like these and you wanted to send in your review, you can, of course, send your thoughts into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com and we'll read them out in a future episode. Okay, George, moving on to Paddington in Peru. Not Paddington 3, following on from Paddington 2. Mm-hmm. This time directed by Dougal Wilson, not Paul King, who, as we actually said in Double Take recently, went to go and do Wonka.
Along with writer Simon Farnaby and Sally Hawkins.
So we've not got Paddington 3. What we've got is Paddington in Peru. We've taken our family and Paddington itself on a road trip to, you guessed it, deepest, darkest Peru. We catch up with the Brown family in their £22 million townhouse in Notting Hill. It was actually quite nice to see Mr. Brown's, whatever his name is, job in the Shard. I was like, who's paying for this?
Yeah.
What multiple hedge funds do you own,
he's the top risk analyst in the world. That staircase alone in that house, they would add like 100 grand.
And the design is like, it's not sort of like the new sort of like modern farmhouse, Victorian, Gregorian style that you see in like a lot of done uptown houses. It's like, I really like it.
I like it.
It's in wooden, with natural materials. Feels like a home. We're catching up with our family as they're a little bit older. Maybe as they go, our children are teenagers. They're spending a little bit less time. We've got Mr. Brown, who's struggling to find the right kind of way in with his new boss at work. You've got Mrs. Brown, who now the kids are a little bit older, has all the spare time to herself, and she's trying to get into painting, but is finding that her, own emotions are shifting her creative work. You've got the daughter Judy, who's applying for university and is very preoccupied with figuring out where she should be.
Nest.
You've got Jonathan Brown, who is getting radicalized in his room playing video games. No, he's invents stuff, but he's probably spending too much time in the dark.
Yeah.
And Paddington, who receives a letter from a suspicious-looking Olivia Colman in Peru to say that his Aunt Lucy has gone missing. Although you must come to Peru because I have something urgent to tell you.
Yeah.
And that Aunt Lucy is missing. So they realize that the perfect thing the family needs is actually a trip to Peru to help Paddington Bear find his roots and also find Aunt Lucy. And that is the basis of the trip. And along the way, we meet Hunter Cabot, played by none other than Antonio Banderas. Antonio Banderas, who is in full Hispanic. Deep, yes.
Can you trust me or can you not trust me?
It's like if he's 10 out of 10 Antonio Banderas in this.
Yes.
It's not like he's dialed back. No. Antonio, can you please do full Antonio Banderas? He's kind of playing the same role he did in the Uncharted film.
Right, I never saw that, but...
Yeah, I mean, you're fine to not see it. Also with his daughter, Gina, who is following him along this beautiful barge. And when they go down into the depths of the barge where the family stay, stunning. Yes. His office in that room, the wooden paneling, I think there's a bit of a TARDIS effect happening on that boat, where I was like, the interior is way bigger than the exterior looks, but nonetheless, having fun with it. You've also got Judy Walters is back as Mrs. Bird. Hugh Bonneville, I think I said. We've replaced
Sally Hawkins
with Emily Mortimer.
Which actually didn't bother me that much at all. I got on with it pretty quickly. I mean,
fairly smooth transition.
Love Sally Hawkins, but the vibe was the same.
Sort of sweet, polite, manners maketh a man type vibe.
Yes.
We're stumbling through the Peruvian Amazonia. Everything goes a little bit wrong. George, how did you get on with Paddington in Peru?
Well, it's interesting because Paddington 2 has developed this, both Paddington films, but specifically Paddington 2 has developed this cult status, which is funny because cult status only usually gets attributed to films that have either underperformed at the box office or for a reason didn't have their voice in their right time and then are found by another audience. Paddington 2 is that strange thing where commercial success,
mainstream,
critical success, huge mainstream film, but then it has developed its own sort of cult following where people say it is one of the most universally loved.
I think because it's quite sweet and quite twee, it's actually countercultural to be like, no, I actually really like this very like a sweet and mainstream film. It's really good. You should see it.
It is a great film. I think we should say I love Paddington.
Paddington 2.
I also love the
both
first
Paddingtons are very, very good. But I think Paddington 2 really does, really is great. Talia's not seen any Paddingtons.
Oh, well, she's
so I think we might do 1 and 2 while we're away this year.
So, following that, it is a bit
of course, Ben Whishaw reprises his role as Paddington.
Yes, and of course it is. it's quite a task then to follow that when it's built up such a status. It's been 7 years now since Paddington 2 came out. So I understand how we have taken this slightly different direction, not calling it Paddington 3. We've gone for Paddington in Peru. I think broadly speaking, there's still lots of lovely ingredients there. I think the Ben Whishaw voicing Paddington remains one of the best pieces of vocal casting that there's ever been. It is such every time Paddington opens his mouth, he's just warm and welcoming.
I don't really know how to do that.
Lucy, a completely inspired piece of casting. Did you know it was originally Colin Firth? And they went into production with that, and then I can't even imagine hearing anything but Ben Whishaw in that role. Ben Whishaw, by the way, one of the best actors working today.
He's fantastic.
Good in everything.
I've seen him on stage as well with your girlfriend.
Yes,
actually.
I was chronically ill.
And he actually acts very, I think I've said this before on the show, but he acts very stagey but makes it work in film really well. But if you've ever seen him live, he's so locked in and so detailed, and every twitch of his face is just immaculate.
I also love Hugh Bonneville as Mr. Brown. I think he was great in the previous films, and he has great comic timing and this sort of reluctant but affable parental figure that's restrained and a great sort of foil to his wife. Julie Walters there, and it's very handsomely presented. I will say that my thing with Paddington in Peru, my issue if I have one with Paddington in Peru, is that it is Paddington in Peru. For me, taking him out of London and going back to the jungle, although in principle on paper, I understand you've got to take these films somewhere. We've had 2 films of him bumbling around London, getting into mischief. However, in principle, in practice, I really don't think that works. And I think it misunderstands what makes Paddington such an enjoyable character. We love in the first 2 films seeing Paddington run around London and interact with interact with people and the modern world. Admittedly, a very fictionalized, rose-tinted version of London, but it is interesting watching a Peruvian bear that can talk interact with the modern world. What I realised when we get to Peru is that there's a moment when they're on the boat pretty quickly with Antonio Banderas, and I thought, oh, you've taken this bear who was getting into all this sort of mischief and trouble. Remember in the first film where he's on the escalator of the tube and it's like dogs must be carried. Brilliant. And I'm like, you've stuck him on a boat where he can only do things with the 4 or 5 characters around him, and this boat is essentially in a green screen, on a green screen. And a lot of the film, therefore, takes place in the rainforest where his surroundings are kind of green screen and devoid. And I thought, oh, you've extracted him from his location. I think you've lost a lot of the charm in doing so. I think a lot of it feels kind of baggy and slow, and it feels slightly off-brand. And the best thing I could say is maybe it's a lateral move. It's a side quest. I think it feels like the kind of generic Paddington film I think we all thought we were going to get 10 years ago when they made the first one. And then we were surprised at how detailed and charming and wonderful it is. But for my thing is that I think the as soon as we land in Peru, it loses interest for me because it's like you can't relate to that. There's nothing enjoyable about watching a bear back in the jungle. He's a bear, of course. And we've spoken a lot recently about films isolating their characters in a really frustrating way. And Joker 2, putting Arthur in jail is very frustrating for an audience because he can't do anything. Or like when I talked about The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, it's just, suddenly you're actually just these 2 people just wandering along in the jungle. Venom 3, not a great film, but let's just actually just stick these people, stick them in the desert where they can't actually interact with anything. It's not that interesting. And I think Paddington 3 falls into that trap a little bit.
Paddington in Peru.
Yeah, thank you, Paddington in Peru, not Paddington 3. There are chucklesome moments here and there. There's nice little details. If you keep an eye out like you do with the best of Aardman or Pixar, if you keep an eye out, there are small little details that are fun there. But I would say, I was underwhelmed, a bit disappointed. It's nothing really a patch on the original 2. And I think, it just feels a bit off-brand, a bit of a side quest, a bit to the side. But, there are many, many bad things in the world. And I think I don't want to.
It's not Megan off the list.
Come on, it's not just bad films. There are many bad things in the world. So I'm keen to sort of leave my judgment there. I really don't want to go and murder Paddington in Peru because it doesn't deserve it. There are far worse things. This film is inherently still got a good heart and trying to do lovely things. So there.
I sat down and I watched the film and I felt like it just went past me completely. I thought it was really green screen heavy. And look, I didn't expect them to go to the Peruvian Amazon on location to film Paddington in Peru, but inherently by doing that and shooting the way you want to shoot, it really did look like it was shot inside for outside. A lot of the lighting I just thought looked really poor. Once you went beyond that initial area they were standing in, everything just felt detached and not real and blurry and out of focus. Yeah. So therefore I just had that famous CGI detachment for most of the thing. I agree with everything you said about taking Paddington into Peru, ironically, and out of London loses the charm of the fish out of water. I don't think the fish out of water for the Browns being in Amazon is as interesting to me. Those characters aren't actually the anchor. It's Paddington. So it felt a lot like, as you said, side quest. I felt like straight to DVD additional thing that you don't need to see. Like those things, those random things you remember that you now find on Disney Plus, which is like, Toy Story Monsters Unleashed or whatever it's called. And it's like this side thing for the kids. Again, like I'm not deeply offended by it, but I think I was surprised it didn't really connect with me on any level. I think that's what I was waiting for it to sort of start hitting me, and I got halfway through and I was like, this really isn't doing that much for me. I also think it's very unfunny. I remember actually really finding the first two, I was laughing a lot, whereas this one, I think I maybe chuckled once.
Well, that's because Paddington's sort of like, slipping in the water of the Amazonian River is not that funny, whereas him trying to chase a villain through London on the back of a dog, going down the canal or with the umbrella, that's quite funny.
It's charming.
And
it's like running through some of the chases that happen in this. I'm like, I guess, if you say. So look, I think if you're a massive Paddington fan and you're desperate for a bit of extra Paddington and you want to fill in some gaps in the Paddington lore, by all means go and check out Paddington 2. But I really don't think it's like grab the family, grab grandma and grandpa and go to the cinema, must watch. It's a real take it or leave it for me, which I think is a bit of a shame because I thought it could have done a lot more with that. And also, given that the director and the writers have changed, I think that really therefore shows in what it's trying to do with itself.
The sad thing is, I was watching it and I was like, I don't think I'm ever going to rewatch this film. Whereas I have and I will happily rewatch the first two Paddingtons. Yeah. But I'm like, I don't think I'll ever return to this. Yeah. My mum had an idea, right, which I thought was quite a good idea, even though it does sound like a straight to DVD knockoff like you were just describing. But she was like, why didn't they just do a Christmas Paddington at Christmas? And I was like, that is obviously such a winner. The films are very Christmassy anyway in their sort of coziness.
Very much so.
They always come out at winter time. That's actually, I would have loved to have seen Paddington in London during Christmas.
Yeah, that would be gorgeous.
And we could do with a new Christmas
Release
movie.
it in November, 6 weeks later, it's out Christmas Day on TV.
And then you make it a perennial classic, but it's different to the first two. But
maybe that's plans for Paddington.
Maybe plans for the first one. But in a way, I'm like, well, I think we kind of done it now, haven't we? Like the first two were great. You tried something different with this one. I respect you for that, but not for me. Do you know what do you know what actually I think would be even though it's not canon to the Paddington canon, in a way, the best third Paddington film was that 5-minute clip they did for the Queen's Jubilee,
which they had a little Easter egg for.
Which was did they?
There's a painting. There's a picture in Paddington's room of him and the Queen.
Oh, is it? Oh, I missed.
There's quite a lot of visual things actually referring.
I noticed that the stamp on the letter is Michael Bond, who wrote Paddington at one point, which is nice. But in a way, that kind of works as the kind of final Paddington 3, because if you're looking at Paddington engaging with British society, he's reached the top. He's in Buckingham Palace having tea with the Queen. It's a lovely, sweet little moment. That kind of works better. That I'd rather rewatch that than rewatch Paddington in Peru. Sorry. We do have an email about Paddington in Peru.
By the way, just before you go, obviously our opinion isn't gospel, but it's sitting at a 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, which I think is
a bit high,
way too high. So just we should always take those with a pinch of salt. I think people are only now still seeing it, so they'll probably change.
Friend of the show, Adam, has written in about Paddington in Peru. With Paddington in Peru is adorable. Hey, dear James and George and James, I hope you guys are well. I thought I'd get in touch and share my thoughts with you on Paddington in Peru. Excuse me. It's worth saying that my dad and I would read the books religiously when I was growing up. Something about wholesome bears always spoke to me. Pooh and Rupert were also up there as well. I'd love to see sort of an Avengers mashup of Paddington, Pooh Bear, and Rupert Bear.
Piglet's gone missing.
Yeah, we'll find him.
Oh no, where's he gone to?
I saw the first film in cinemas 10 years ago when I just started secondary school. And while I missed Paddington 2 in 2017, I've watched that a couple of times now, and it thoroughly deserves the recognition and cultural status it has. Paddington 2 is great. I remember it brought me a single tear at the end of when I saw it.
Oh, Lucy.
Yeah. Oh. With that said, I was very excited for a third entry, but had reservations, considering some of the cast and crew changes. While Paddington in Peru becomes a bit meandering in its adventure-driven second act, I think the way the story wraps up, everything from onwards, and the post-credits do make it recover. It's high praise when even the weaker part of a trilogy is delightful. Emily Mortimer does a fantastic job in stepping in for Sally Hawkins, and Antonio Banderas' character arc won me over by the end. It has a very strong opening with more fish out of water humor that does get lost. It has a very strong opening with more fish out of water humor that does get sadly lost, inherent with a plot that sees Paddington, go back to Peru. Hugh Bonneville is having a whale of a time, as is Julie Walters and Olivia Colman. The children, now well and truly grown up, are still great characters. Then Ben Whishaw, the voice of Paddington, Aunt Lucy, remains the heart and soul of the film. I wasn't expecting to be as moved by the ending, but I was gladly proven wrong and definitely got choked up. It once again sticks the landing. I love these films. As far as I'm concerned, so long as Paddington movies are in production, cinema is alive and thriving.
They make Paddington Station itself look very nice.
Yes.
With a nice little fake
the
coffee
whole of London is
shop.
just like...
The whole of London.
It's London without pollution.
If you're not from London, it doesn't really look like that.
It makes the pigeons look adorable.
And that house, of course you can stay in one if you've got a spare 18 to 22 million pounds. You could, of course, have that house, but that is like a seriously lovely house.
I will just say as well about the villains. There was something repetitive about Antonio Banderas. He's not a villain, but like Antonio Banderas' backstory.
Dressing up of different...
It's also just like being... Nicole Kidman's the villain in the first one. Hugh Grant's the villain in the second one. Each one has like something in their family history that is driving them to want to do something nefarious.
Evil themselves. They come from a line of...
But I'm like, didn't we see this before where like a different version of your past is talking to you? Like with Hugh Grant where he plays the different actors, roles he's played.
Like cut and paste.
Yeah, it's a little bit slightly rehashed. But... Anyway,
I really noticed with the whole green screen thing that most of the lighting looked really artificial. Yeah. So that really just took me out of it. I was like, the times they were meant to be in the sun, I knew that wasn't sunlight. Those were like, it's probably a studio in Watford.
For me, I was like, we're in the third act. Are we? I guess this must be the end.
Yeah,
because
I guess we're coming
the characters have done this, but
no. Lots of reacting in plane cockpits and cars, and it's coming.
Anyway, Adam, thank you for that. Anyway, that, guys, was Paddington in Peru. Do let us know your thoughts. We don't have hearts of stone. We are open to warm and lovely things. We're not immune to its charms.
No, I love Paddington too.
But slightly disappointed there. Slightly
not
underwhelmed.
Too cool to like Paddington.
No.
I say it how it is, man.
I'm not cool at all. You've seen me try to talk to people. Except for Billy Bob Thornton.
I think you're cool, don't worry.
Hey! Thank you very much, guys. Yes, email us in about that. Don't say thank you very much. That makes it sound like it's the end of the episode.
Send us a thank you.
Guys, if you have seen Paddington in Peru, please let us know your thoughts too. hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. The kids in my cinema screening were restless.
Same. I had two in mine.
You could hear it. They snapped in when it worked, but then they
I was thinking about what we had to do today. I saw it yesterday, and in my mind was like, I've got to do that. And yeah, that reminds me. Like, I've got stuff to do with George. I was not engaged throughout the whole time. I was literally waiting for it to just like wash past me and happen. Because I realised halfway through, I was like, oh, this just isn't... it's just a bit woolly and insubstantial. Yeah. And once you realise that, I am just waiting for the hour and 40 minutes to go. That's what it is. George, should we go through some of the emails that we get sent into the show every single week? As always, guys, if you wanted to support us at the VIP tier on Patreon, you can do and have priority access to have your email read out onto the show. Or you can send in your thoughts to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com. Just like Sydney did. Sydney writes into the show and says, hi, and I'm taking the pressure off me. You decide whose name to say first. I'm writing to you mere minutes after finishing the John Williams documentary on Disney Plus with tears in my eyes and a smile on my face. The compilation of his scores and the opportunity to revisit so many of my favourite films brought me so much joy, and it was a wonderful reminder of the power of music in film. It is thanks to John Williams' work that our favourite films stick with us long after the credits roll. When you hear a piece of his work, it immediately transports you right back into the world of your favourite stories. I know you guys have shared that it would be difficult to do an episode on film scores due to copyright issues, but I was hoping to hear your thoughts on the documentary, if you've seen it, or just discussion on the topic in general. Thank you both for all that you do. Sydney from Massachusetts. We do, yes, the copyright thing is an issue, but we've been saying for a while, I think it's something we'll do on Patreon where that isn't a problem. So stand by. We would love to do a sort of Desert Island Disc style format where we present great scores and talk about them, and you get to listen to them along with the show. But with no announcements yet.
I was about to go, hello, this is Kirsty Young. Welcome to Desert Island Discs. Yeah. But she doesn't do it anymore. She hasn't done it for years. No. It's Lauren Laverne. I will say that John Williams, the creative partnership with him and Spielberg, I think, is one of the greatest.
Totally.
We often talk about actor-director relationships, but I think Spielberg and Williams' collaboration is just sublime and really kind of pulls people, makes you feel cinema, feel big, it is the best of it's the best of studio Hollywood filmmaking.
I also feel like when films are referred to and brought up fondly from memory, often in conversation someone will sing the score or refer to the score or hum the score. It'll be one of the first things they do when they're talking about the film, even Star Wars, but like all the Spielberg stuff. He's
iconic and really
and has a really distinct tone. Like I think you can recognize John Williams even if you don't know it's John Williams. I've personally found.
I think he was that sort of era of composers where it was about a signature sound and having you needed a theme for it to be memorable. Whereas now I think it's not. Films don't really have memorable themes. You have great scores and scores not soundtracks. You have great scores, but it's not about having necessarily a definable character theme, but
sense of wonder and majesty.
It's the same Spielbergian thing, the childlike wonder. With the amazingness and the glee. There's a glee to John Williams' music about this excitement of cinema.
Jurassic Park main theme, Binary Sunset. I put
E.T. I'd say as well.
We're gonna say if I had to choose, like painfully.
What do you mean if you look at a whole man's career and you only choose two things?
I think if I had to, without thinking about it, I'd go those in my top. Oh, Indiana Jones.
I think it's easier, if we were to do like the Desert Island Patreon thing, it's like it wouldn't necessarily be whole bodies of scores. It'd have to be tracks from certain scores. Would you say? Yeah.
No, not the whole body. So like you get to choose. In my head, it's like we both have chosen for the first episode 5 of our favourite or maybe under appreciated score moments from film.
Yeah, score track.
I present. We listen to the whole thing, so the episode plays out, and then we get to talk about it. I think that would be a really great episode. It's the kind of thing I'd love to listen to more of, like a slower pace. Maybe we talk over the music or we just let it play. I don't know, but a slow thing. Stand by. Maybe next year we'll have time to do that. It'd be great.
This next email is from James,
friend of the show,
who says, tenuously linking The Substance and Aftersun. Hi chaps, hope you're both well. It's been a while since I've written in, so I thought I might tenuously link two recent film experiences together. Last Friday, my girlfriend was out with friends, so I decided to watch The Substance, italicized, thank you. It was on Mubi, and she doesn't really like horror. I'd heard it's rather gory too. I found myself slightly underwhelmed, as discussed on the Discord. Discord available.
Please, Patreon.
The film had an interesting premise brewing about the objectivity of feminine beauty, youth, and the stricture of women in the entertainment industry. However, I felt it unfortunately somewhat chucked this out of the window in the third act. As I mentioned in the chat, the film never finishes what it is trying to say about the undercurrent theme of the mental degradation, not just physical consequence of using the drug. Ironically, the film never really got under my skin, which is a shame given the unique premise. I was wondering if you two have felt this with any other films. Awesome premise, which is sadly pivoted away from. Infinity Pool comes to mind for me.
Yeah, I see what you mean. I sort of lost Infinity Pool 2/3 in.
Yeah.
There's loads of interesting ideas there, but it is just so over the top and slightly distressing to watch that you feel like it doesn't really want you to engage with it. That's how I found.
Now for the tenuity. The tenuity, like the tenuous link. Good word. I recently watched Aftersun on my laptop, and it was such a poignant experience. And despite the small screen, I was able to soak in the gorgeous cinematography and the characters, which felt so real through heartbreaking, visceral performances. The film really stayed with me. It's hard to articulate how I feel about it in the very best way. This got me thinking, have you ever watched a film in a less ideal medium, but has still been able to have a deep impact on you? I thought The Substance was stylish and no doubt better experienced in the cinema, but it was the structure that lets it down, whereas Aftersun was able to transcend my laptop's small screen and tin pot speakers. Love the pod, genuinely improved my life. Oh, James, thank you.
Advice for laptop watching, put headphones on, makes a huge difference.
Best, James. P.S. You don't have to read this out, but I found the voices in the dialogue in The Substance a bit annoying, blah, blah, blah. Right. Screams dialogue that won't have enough impact.
I think like the set piece of, just back to The Substance, the set piece in the third act of The Substance, I think almost barges the theme slightly out of the way to do what it wants to do. Which is
screams at you.
And I applauded it for being able to do that, and I think the practicals in that are just really quite brilliant for that type of thing, but it costs a more interesting conversation with the film.
With Aftersun, I'm still yet to rewatch it, and I'm really keen to. If you're a new listener, go check our review out from 2 years ago. I had a very frustrating experience where my cinema bizarrely showed it like 5 minutes after the runtime, advertised runtime, which I know they're, I suppose, legally allowed to do. But when have you ever gone to the cinema and they've shown a film in that time? There's always 20 to 30 minutes of adverts. So, and I missed the first 5 minutes. And I know that because when I was on a plane the following year, I opened it and I watched to see where I came in. It was 5 whole minutes, which is an exercise of all the minutes to miss in a film, the opening 5 minutes are the worst because it completely tells you the framework and everything. So I'd love to go back and rewatch that. And I think I would have a much better experience.
You know what's always a really difficult way to watch a film is on the school coach where the TV or just like any sort of traveling coach and the hanging TV plays out, and you've got some people who are close to the TV who can enjoy it, some people far away, different people talking. There's 2 screens sometimes. I did remember, because your question was about, James, your question was about how less than ideal medium used to have. I've seen a lot of films on buses. Like I watched there's a New Zealand movie called Whale Rider, and I watched that on a bus. Again, the old TV flipped down, still able to enjoy that. Do you remember when planes used to have that?
Yeah.
Just one TV. And like today we'll be showing Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
Yes,
and you either plugged into the
audio.
Two jack audio, yeah. You either plugged in or you didn't.
I also saw The Impossible on a bus, very similar scenario. That was quite good, but also not a TV that's dead in front of me. It's across the aisle. I turn my head.
Saw, was it The Mask or The Legend of Zorro on a bus? I think it was The Mask, the first one.
The Jim Carrey film?
No, the Antonio Banderas film.
You mean
Zorro?
You mean just Zorro?
The Mask of Zorro.
Oh, is it called The Mask of Zorro?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I said The Mask of Zorro or Legend of Zorro.
I thought you were just like conflating the two films. It was like wildly
You said The Mask or Zorro.
Yeah, that's
The
what
Mask of Zorro.
Oh, The Mask of Zorro or The Legend of Zorro. Okay.
I think The Legend is the sequel. The Mask is with Anthony Hopkins and Gutierrez. And
you saw that on a
Susie
bus?
Jones. Yeah.
How was it?
I remember that. I liked it. But I think I then rewatched it later.
What is Zorro's thing? He's just a sword fighter, Spanish sword fighter.
Yeah, Spanish sword fighter. He watches the Zorro and then Zorro goes, and then he becomes Zorro and he's actually trained by Zorro. But the Zorro's like a mask, like Spanish Batman.
See. Okay.
Fights the English.
Of course.
Very sexy. Catherine Zeta-Jones, the original Zorro.
Hey.
Oh,
ooh.
Yeah.
Watch out.
And to be fair, Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas plays Tom Hanks's boyfriend in Philadelphia, and he looks fantastic because he's young.
And in Paddington in Peru, he still looks great. He had a lovely sort of traveling linen white thing.
Antonio Banderas is a sexy man.
Yeah,
you know, it's not a hot take.
He's sexy before he's even walked in the room. Because if you hear him coming, it's like I know a sexy man is about.
You know, he took a year off and studied sculpture at like Central St Martin's.
Oh, that's so hard.
And I'd love to just I can see him sculpting now with his glasses at the bottom of his nose, sculpting the thing. I learned about Picasso.
Where is Antonio? He is sculpting.
He's sculpting. Look at my hands. Anyway, next up.
This next one is from Esme, friend of the show. Says, hi guys, hope you're both good. Was listening to your latest episode, and you were discussing why Gladiator is going a week earlier in the US. I believe it's largely due to clashing with Wicked.
It's going earlier in the UK, not the US. It's coming out on the 15th here.
Yes, I think you've mixed up there. Albeit they're going in the same week as Wicked in the US, but that is Thanksgiving weekend. And so I think they would rather hold that date in the US, but in the UK, there's no reason to. So she's put Gladiator UK November 15th, Gladiator US November 22nd, Wicked UK US November 22nd. As I'm sure you're aware, in November in the UK, the box office will be stacked. Paddington 2 in the first weekend,
Paddington in Peru.
Paddington Peru in the first weekend, Gladiator 2 in the second, Wicked in the third, Moana 2 in the fourth. What do you think will be the order from largest to smallest box office in the UK for the 4 films? Thank you so much. See you at the quiz on the 2nd.
Hey!
Esme! We will see you. Please just grab me and say, I'm Esme.
Yeah, you must introduce yourself by name.
Well, I can't, yeah. Anyway.
We had people last time who were like, hi, I'm so-and-so. I sent in an email last year about this. And we are able to locate it in our mind
and say about this thing. But if you're just a person who's like, hi, I sometimes don't know if you're like the primary guest or you've come as a friend of someone. So please just say, I sent in that email 2 years ago.
I do what like David Johnson in Alien Romulus. I sort of go, my eyes roll back into my head. And I go, yes.
It was episode 89 and we reviewed Thing and the weather was cloudy.
In terms of the order, I think you'll go Gladiator top, Wicked second, Paddington third, and Moana.
Oh, Moana did well.
The thing is, though, the Paddington and Moana come out 3 weeks apart. So they're going to Moana will be above Paddington.
I think it'll be Gladiator,
Wicked, Moana.
I think Moana will do better than Wicked.
Maybe.
I think Moana was huge.
They are going huge with Wicked, aren't they? They're really pushing it. Do you know what? Oh, by the way, I should have said this on double take, but I think here's my theory of what's going to happen. They're going to make Wicked, and best case scenario, makes a lot of money, right? Great. Then they've got Wicked Part 2 coming out next year, I think it is. Makes a whole lot of money. Do you know what that teased them up for? A remake of The Wizard of Oz. They just do a straight remake following on from Wicked of The Wizard of Oz. And why? Because The Wizard of Oz came out in 1937, which is fucking crazy. I'm looking forward to rewatching that at Christmas as well. And I'm sure the IP, the intellectual property rights,
of course, it expires after 90-something
I think it's 90 years or some 90 years. So they've only got, if they want to remake The Wizard of Oz, they only have a certain amount of time left to do that.
Point.
That's
what's
also
likely going to happen.
I think that's worrying DC at the moment is that the rights to Batman and Superman will be the intellectual rights will be expiring soon to their public domain.
That is crazy. That will be crazy.
Because obviously now you've got like Winnie the Pooh and Mickey Mouse is public. People are maybe able to make Mickey Mouse movies. Because it's been out for so long.
I guess that must be also happening with Tolkien stuff, and that's why they're rushing to make.
I know. Well, because he didn't. When did he publish Lord of the Rings?
World War I, so
I thought he didn't publish Lord of the Rings till the 40s.
Well, yeah, that means they've got 20 years.
Yeah, they've got a bit. Yeah, it's still a bit.
That in film world, that's to make stuff.
It's longer than it's. Oh, it's The Hobbit came out in 37. The Lord of the Rings came out in 54. So they got a bit. Of time.
Okay, so 54's later than I thought.
But considering the DC and the Wizard of Oz from anyway, that's my hot take. That's my theory that if Wicked does okay at the box office, they will just do a Wizard of Oz movie.
I can see it happening totally.
Would you rather fight you know what I was thinking? Who'd win in a fight, like the lion or the Tin Man or the Scarecrow, which is completely not the message of Wizard of Oz. But I think the Tin Man would win because not only does he have an axe and he's made of metal, he famously has no heart. So he would just.
So if violence had to happen, he would just go.
He's got no heart. He's impenetrable. And he's got a weapon.
Yeah.
The lion has no courage. The lion's screwed. Even if he had courage, no use.
Yeah.
He'd pick up a yellow brick. Is made of straw.
Pelt Dorothy in the face.
I always, weirdly, when I used to watch The Wizard of Oz when I was younger, I haven't seen it again in like 20 years, but I always used to like identify with the Scarecrow. Isn't that weird? I felt sort of like Limmy, sort of, if I only had a brain. Anyway, thank you, Esme, for that. Did we answer Esme's question? I think so. We just sort of chatted about it a bit there. Next up is from Lara. Lara writes in and says, hello, past lives lovers. Yeah, 2023 throwback.
Yeah.
One of our favourite films of last year.
Totally.
I know the usual focus is on film, but in the absence of anyone else talking about this TV series, I feel like I need to get this out. The series is called Alice and Jack, starring the wonderful Domhnall Gleeson, Andrea Riseborough, Aisling Bey, and many other wonderful people. This show moved me in a way that no other has. I walked away from it having felt and what felt like every emotion a person could possibly feel, much like my experience watching Past Lives. In a world of short, sharp social media reels, I found myself enthralled by something. I was dragged into the story and I felt I couldn't escape, but also I didn't want to. It stayed with me for the weeks following. Much like James's comment regarding the Before trilogy, I walked away having a sense that this was a real couple out in the world right now.
I did say that.
Yeah, sometimes people get us wrong. You did say that.
I did say that.
I'm not much of a pay attention to reviews person, but was surprised to see the poor ratings and lack of attention this show received. I felt not enough people have been talking about it, and I'm terribly curious to hear your thoughts if you have watched it. Discovered the pod this year thanks to a Spotify recommendation, and boy oh boy am I glad to have found you. Keep doing what you're doing, creating such wonderful work. Big love all the way from Australia, Lara.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, Lara. Thank you, Spotify's algorithm, for working in our favour for once.
Yeah, that's great.
Alice and Jack, I did know about this. There's a couple of reasons why I think no one's talking about it. One is that it came out basically at the exact same time Netflix's One Day came out.
Yeah, I mean.
So it came out on ITV here. So that's targeting a completely different demographic, and it's terrestrial television. I know you can get ITV online, but it was at the same time as One Day, and the whole conversation about will they, won't they, couples doomed, etc., was all about One Day, and this got lost. I walked past them filming this like 2 years ago. If you go back to an episode from 2 years ago, I talk about past Domhnall Gleeson and Andrea Riseborough. I love both of them as actors. I've heard it is very good. My girlfriend watched it. I think she said it was good, but not great.
Okay.
Found some of the characters very frustrating. I think she preferred One Day, but I'm all for small relationship dramas.
This just made me think. When I was away last week, I was on board a massive cruise ship, which had not just a singular cinema, but like a multiplex. I think it had 4 screens running films. And in like the lead up, there are like posters for the films which are showing, right? Could you guess what films were showing? One of them...
Okay, wait, hang on. Is it like air travel where some films that have only just come out are available?
In the case of yes, one of these, yes. So you'll be able to guess.
Have all of these films been released, or are they about to release? Okay,
they've all been come out.
Some of them have come out very recently.
Yes.
Okay, so
you can probably guess. Think cruise ship.
Cruise ships with children.
Yeah.
So The Wild Robot.
No. Think really successful from this year.
Inside Out 2.
Yes, that was the first one. So the other one.
Wait, give me a clue. This
isn't a kid's film.
This could have been your game.
It could have been my game. The other one won the best picture.
This year?
This year.
Oh, the best picture movie?
Yeah.
Hold on, don't
this is your thing.
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, Oppenheimer. The other one is an action film that came out this year that we really liked.
Action film. More of a clue. Action movie.
We actually really enjoyed it.
Not Dune Part 2.
No.
An action movie.
That we actually really enjoyed.
Actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed that, is what we said.
Bad Boys 4?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Bad Boys 4.
And then the last one, which you won't get, or I could give you loads of clues. It's a biopic no one asked for.
Reagan.
No. About an author of a famous novel.
It's not Tolkien.
No, but say it's similar vibe.
Oh.
From 2017, but don't quote me on it.
Goodbye, Christopher Robin.
Yeah.
Forgotten for weird Donald Gleeson.
So it's like Inside Out 2, totally get it. Oppenheimer, of course, like great to see that. Bad Boys Ride or Die, I guess, sort of ticks a lot of boxes, recent film. And Goodbye Christopher Robin. And I know there probably were other films, but of the 4 posters, like, the digital posters, those were the 4. And so I made a note of them and thought
That's a really forgotten film.
Goodbye Christopher Robin.
With Donald Gleeson and Margot Robbie.
But I was always like, I guess, to be really rude, if you're just old and it's got a really yellowy, parchmenty poster that's very oh yes, of course, Winnie the Pooh.
I've heard it's really sad.
I bet.
I've heard because I believe that Christopher Robin, who was the actual name of the son of the writer, A.A. Milne?
No.
What's the name? Who wrote Winnie the Pooh? Isn't it A.A. Milne?
Oh, A.A. Milne.
Okay,
yeah,
so A.A. Milne, who wrote, we obviously named the character Christopher Robin after his son Christopher Robin, and Christopher Robin, his son, did not like that and did not take him well because he became actually like a bit of a celebrity in his time, but also his relationship with his parents was incredibly cold and stiff.
It's the same kind of film as Finding Neverland.
Yeah, I think that's more famous, isn't it?
I think it's better, yeah.
Yeah, Finding Neverland's good.
You know what I mean? Biopic nobody asked for about an author writing a book.
Who watched Tolkien?
And Saving Mr. Banks.
That's great, though.
I love Saving Mr. Banks.
Tolkien? What?
Nicholas Hoult.
I know.
Yeah.
Love him. Yeah. Lily Collins.
Hey, they got 20 years. Get it all out there. But yeah, I thought that's always interesting. It's like similar to the plane thing where I see what people are watching. This is like, what is a cruise ship?
When I go to Florida this week,
please
I'll
do a
keep
survey. Go to the toilet and then turn around and just scan and go, okay, I'd say that's like 40% Oppenheimer or there's a little Bad Boys there. It's always great. And you'll find people are still watching Barbie on a plane.
I can
people
totally
watching Barbie.
And
Indiana Jones.
I think Barbie and Inside Out 2 will be a big prominent ones.
Yeah.
You going to keep reading?
Next up on the interwebs,
one,
Kieran writes in. It says, "Hi, James and George and James. Kieran here from Northampton. I hope you're both well. I'm a long-time listener and first-time emailer." Kieran, hello.
Hi.
I've been toying with the idea of emailing in for a while now, but ever since you discussed watching films at a cinema abroad 10 to 15 episodes ago, then I listened to this week's episodes where Kieran from Leicester had emailed in, so the Derby rivalry took over, and I wanted to read it out on the pod too. Hope you don't mind. In 2017, my wife and I were traveling Southeast Asia, and we had been traveling for about 2 months where we just fancied a day of relaxing and having some home comfort. We are both huge film lovers and review films with each other after we have seen them. That's cute. We were in Ho Chi Minh City where we see a big poster for the sequel to Kingsman, The Secret Service. We both thoroughly enjoyed the first film and thought we'd treat ourselves to a cinema trip for the first time on our travels.
Can I just say, do you know the best thing about going to the cinema in Southeast Asia is? It's the air conditioning.
Oh, yeah, they got it.
Amazing.
Yeah. I quite like going. There's a certain type of holiday where you use cinema. Like, I've been to the cinema.
You cinema.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I've done it in Washington, D.C. I've done it in Cape Town. I've done it in New York. But, like, I don't...
I could go see Wicked when I'm in Florida. I mean, that would just be another big, huge multiplex with things.
Totally good. Sorry. But this was I've thoroughly enjoyed. It all started off pretty normal. We got our tickets and some snacks and then walked into this huge theatre, probably the biggest one I've ever been in for a film. It was packed. The film was okay, as you may both know. Some funny bits here and there, but not a patch on the first. However, we did have the funniest cinema experience to date due to very delayed subtitles for the Vietnamese viewers. It was probably 3 to 5 seconds, which is extremely long. Yeah. My wife and I would laugh at a punchline, and when we had finished with our laughter, the rest of the cinema would then erupt with theirs. This led to both of us at first thinking the room was laughing at us until later we clocked the reason why. It was hilarious throughout and a very funny experience to say the least. I just can't get over how delayed they were.
Yeah.
Is this normal for English-speaking films in foreign countries? Has anyone else experienced such a thing? Who knows? Maybe some listeners have. Thank you for all your work with the pod. I've listened for over a year to your passionate love of film. I get excited every Wednesday evening for the next one. You've reignited my love of film for sure. P.S. Have you watched the new Transformers 1 film animation? I thoroughly enjoyed it and can't believe the marketing for it was pretty dire. Go check it out. Sirens on our end. Kieran, thank you for your lovely email.
Thank you, Kieran.
That is really poor.
What a delay.
We talk about this literally today. We talk about this a lot, like just little things that you can get wrong, which really ruin an experience. But yeah, that would completely kill it if you require the subtitles and they're late.
But the audience was still laughing.
Yeah, that's pretty. 3 to 5 seconds is long. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I think I've only ever been to the cinema abroad once.
We saw No Time to Die together, and in our screening there was a strip of the screen which was bluer than the rest of the film. You noticed it, and I said, this is bothering me so much, because I was like, why is the left third got a blue tinge to it? Is something wrong with the colour balance? And I realised it's like the projector in there is fucked.
I completely forgot.
Yeah, that really bothered me.
Well, I spotted it, and then you couldn't unsee it.
No, I told you, did you notice this? And you said, I thought you would be bothered about that. Yeah. And I was like, I was very bothered by it. It's like the colour of the film in like the 30% of the screen is completely off. It's the kind of thing that you start to notice things when you do video. I sent you a clip of like a promotional junket for a film where it just hadn't been colour graded and it was put on flat. And I'm always just like astounded that happens for like really professional workflows for huge media outlets. Anyway, we haven't seen Transformers 1 yet. I've heard really solid things.
Nice
I
things.
Can't imagine myself jumping out to see it, but I do believe people when they say it's really
I've
good.
never seen a Transformers movie, and I am not in a huge effort to change that.
If
not
you
I'm not
didn't
a snob or
see
something,
them
but
in 2007 to 2009, I think that was when you could have gotten your enjoyment. And that's kind of that for you. I think it's over for you in your Transformers journey.
I'm heartbroken. This final email is from Callum, who writes in and says, "Hello, George and Jane."
Oh, I'm really sorry. Can I just say, when I did see a film in New York, I was with my cousin, and it was the time that the 6th Harry Potter film was coming out, and it was like the week it came out. So obviously the Americans were loving it by the 6th film, and the frenzy was high, and we booked like a packed auditorium to see the film. And that environment of like, Americans, everything that's big is even bigger, and the frenzy and the excitement was even louder. Like that really elevated and changed my impression of the 6th Harry Potter film, because it was like one of the big multiplexes in Times Square. And that just, I have a really distinct memory of going to see it, and it was so American, and the popcorn didn't taste good, and
the
butter
butter
thing. Yeah.
Oh, by the way, that screening I went to for the Landman, the Billy Bob Thornton screening, I text James, second best popcorn I think I've had at an event.
We talk a lot about how good
the quality of the popcorn is at these events.
Because it varies.
So the best one we've ever had was at a Netflix event for this TV series called Griselda. James,
and the best food ever.
Yes, and the best food ever. But specifically the popcorn, this was garlic and rosemary.
Infused. Premium.
It gave you oil on your hands, but not grease. It had flavour to it. I really was like, I've noticed.
Do you think I would have polished off 3 bags if I had the opportunity?
Yeah, because they only filled them up halfway, so you definitely would have knocked off a few. Absolutely.
When things are good, I'll go for it.
Just also, the only film I've ever seen abroad was Man of Steel in Cambodia in a big multiplex shopping centre.
Yeah.
It was quite a funny experience for various reasons, which I won't go on to in public. And at the end of the film, we came out and the entire shopping centre was closed, and they just funneled everyone towards the freight elevator, which could hold 6 people. You've probably got 150 people there coming out of the cinema. And so we all had to wait in the bright, austere strobe light of this freight exit entrance, and with the great opening clothing of the lift, and for various other reasons, it was not a great time for that to happen. And mad. Anyway, final email this week from Callum, who says, "Hello, James and George and James. Love the show still. I don't know why you needed to put the still in there.
Despite everything.
still with you. I wanted to talk about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson today, as I've just seen the poster for his new film, Red One, I think. I'm very interested by Johnson because he seems to have little interest in playing any character but himself, with audience being treated to near identical performances in the Fast and Furious franchise, Journey 2, Rampage, and Black Adam, to name a few. I don't think this is always a bad thing, as Johnson can be funny and good in blockbuster action scenes. I'm a low-key fan of Black Adam as the first film. I watched it, as it was the first film I watched alone in the cinema. But it is interesting when you compare it to Dave Bautista and John Cena, who have both at least tried to break out of their wrestling personas. What do you make of Johnson's decision to play The Rock at all times? Are there any other actors you can think of that have intentionally typecast themselves in this way?
A lot of great actors play very similar roles. Like, that is inherently what happens. Or even like Ryan Reynolds, it's like sort of everything is a sort of spin-off branch from Deadpool. But I agree. I think The Rock is slightly losing favour as a bankable star of a lot of things. And then reports of him being very difficult to work with and horrendously late to set are coming out.
I'm kind of done with The Rock in the sense that I think Dwayne The Rock Johnson comes across as perfectly charming, and I like it when he can play funny and stuff. And I'm interested to see him, quite rightly, in is it Josh Safdie's upcoming movie?
Yeah,
that'll
be interesting. Yeah,
that'll be interesting. But it's true that he is the same in everything, and also someone made this. I saw it on TikTok, but someone made this comparison with like how Arnold Schwarzenegger handled his movie career and his movie legacy. And Arnold Schwarzenegger was, for the most part, willing to try different things and was working with some of the best directors out there. So like James Cameron for The Terminator, and then he did really well with Twins with Danny DeVito, and also moving into Kindergarten Cop and all that stuff. And definitely like Dwayne The Rock Johnson's tried to lean into being like that kind of Arnie comedic, despite being very big, also can do comedy stuff. But he's also done just forgettable comedies, forgettable action. I mean, really, if you look back at the films that The Rock has made,
it's not a great legacy. There was a moment, I want to say like 2018, 2019, where he was dipping his toes in Fast and Furious, and he was doing films like Skyscraper, and there were all these articles like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, I'm not saying it's a good film, but like, Dwayne The Rock Johnson is the highest grossing actor, look at all this stuff he's doing, he's unstoppable, but ultimately it's never evolved beyond anything.
I'm going to read you out some films that he's been in. First of all, I haven't seen Red One, but I think it looks absolutely terrible.
It looks really poor.
Really does look terrible.
Someone in like loads of advertising in Hamburg, and my producer was like, Red One, what is that? Well, the premise is that Santa has gone missing, and he's the chief security guard, and he has to think that sounds awful.
With a film called Red One, it'd be more interesting if it was set in like the 1980s and Santa was a member of the Communist Party of the Soviet Republic, the Soviet Union, and it was like Red One. Santa
was a communist the whole time?
Exactly. So obviously he's done all the Fast and Furious movies, very boring. Black Adam, huge flop.
5 till.
Okay, but he's done all of the Fast and Furious movies that he's been in.
Sure.
He had a TV series called Young Rock, a bit self-indulgent. Black Adam, huge flop. Red Notice on Netflix with Gal Gadot and Ryan Reynolds. Boring. Jungle Cruise.
Jungle Cruise wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
The two Jumanji movies. I didn't mind the first Jumanji one, but the second one just looked exactly. It looked a copy and paste of the first one. It looked so uninteresting. He did Ballers. Obviously, he was in that as a TV show for ages. Never saw that. Rampage, Skyscraper.
Apparently, Ballers, speculation, from what I've heard, Ballers didn't continue because Dwayne The Rock Johnson was so disinterested and always late. So they couldn't afford to just like have him turn up 8 hours late and do the show.
Baywatch, Central Intelligence. To be honest with you, and then like Hercules, San Andreas.
Hercules.
I'm honest. The only film in the last 10 years of any interest that I rate of The Rock's is Moana. And he was the voice.
Yeah. They're remaking the first one in live action.
With him.
Yeah.
On a stretch. So anyway, to get back to your point, Callum, about what they've intentionally typecast themselves. Well, the initial idea is if you typecast yourself, you build yourself a brand. And also, Dwayne Johnson is not an actor in the same way that Cillian Murphy is an actor. I'm not saying Dwayne Johnson can't act. It's that he is a huge, built like a brick shithouse guy. Yeah. He can't do small things like these. He can't be walking around 1985 Ireland. So,
whereas even in bad movies, I think Dave Bautista's really good. Like even in Knock at the Cabin, I think he's really going for it, doing interesting stuff. He's got that seed-stealing moment in Blade Runner 2049. He's really funny. He's the one. I think he's the funniest character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's such simple, like dumb humor.
I've never heard Dwayne Johnson talk very passionately about film or cinema. I've seen plenty of clips of Dave Bautista really talk about his interest of working with directors. And John Cena, I think, as well. I think John Cena's it's like The Rock without the ego. Yeah. He's done fun things. He's tried to do serious things. Also done Fast and Furious, but I think comes across as better. I'm looking forward to the Josh Safdie thing. I think I'd love to see The Rock strip.
Yeah, I would always hope, like we said the other day, it's that Safdie brothers star that I think strips back a lot of the ego from those big stars, like we saw with Adam Sandler, like you saw with Robert Pattinson. I would hope in that new project the same thing happens to The Rock, and it gives him a renewed sense of simplicity to his performance. And I'd love to say, wow, what a transformation from The Rock. I hope that leads him on to do more interesting work.
Because everything The Rock's done that I just read out is very safe.
Very safe, very broad, very colourful, saturated, studio-y, CG heavy.
Where's the risk?
The kind of stuff that most people would say isn't the type of, at least from our perspective of people who watch other films, that's not the kind of things that gets us excited, really. But with that is the end of our emails. Thank you, as always, for sending them in. We really do appreciate them. As always, guys, if you wanted to have priority access to have your emails read out on the show, you can, of course, do that by supporting us at the VIP tier on Patreon, or if you just want to send us an email, you can do by sending it into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, and we will read them out in future episodes. Your reviews, your thoughts, your questions, your concerns, send them all in. George, should we end with a game?
I'd love to.
Let's do it. George, as always, Pulp Kitchen ends
with a game.
Now, George, a favourite game of ours is Cast List Countdown.
Yes.
It's a great game. I read out the members of a cast, and you have to guess, before I get to the end of the cast, what film the casts belong to. It's great fun. It's grown on social media.
There's a butt coming.
Well, the thing about Cast List Countdown is that what we have to do is usually find very large film casts to inherently play the game, to give it a bit of time, to leave the audience in suspense. But what that does, George, is it leaves out a lot of very good films with teeny tiny casts.
Sure.
So I'm going to instead twist Cast This Countdown, where I'm going to read you sometimes only one or two members of a very small cast. So this cast might only have one cast member. This film might only have one cast member. This film might only have two cast members.
Right.
But it's going to be quick fire.
Okay.
So I will say actor A, actor B, and you will have to very quickly go, it's that. It's inherently easier, but also harder because it's quick fire. But the two casts of that film inherently give it away straight away what film it should be. I think you're well within your abilities to do it. Starting a little bit easier, getting a bit harder, but these are all very small casts. Are you ready to play?
I am.
George, you have to guess the film from... George, you have to guess the film from its cast, but quickfire with small casts. Are you ready?
Yes.
3, 2, 1. Sandra Bullock, George Clooney.
Gravity.
Yes. Clemence Posey, Kate Mara, James Franco.
I don't know.
Danny Boyle.
127 Hours?
Yes.
Kate Mara's in that?
Yes.
Oh.
Patrick Wilson, Elliot Page.
Hard Candy.
Yes. Ethan Hawke, Julie Delpy.
Delpy, the Eddie Before film.
Yep. Robert Redford.
Old Man not Old Man in the Sea. All Is Lost.
Yes. Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe.
The Lighthouse.
Yes. Sam Rockwell, Kevin Spacey. He's a voice, Kevin Spacey.
Sam Rockwell.
It's a film with just Sam Rockwell in it.
Moon.
Yes. John Goodman, Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
10 Cloverfield Lane.
Yes. Willem Dafoe, Charlotte Gainsborough.
Charlotte Gainsbourg.
Lars von Trier.
Gainsbourg. Antichrist.
Yes. Ryan Reynolds.
Get the names right. Ryan Reynolds, just Ryan Reynolds, buried.
Yes. Katie Featherston, Micah Sloat.
Never heard of either of those. We're going to say, is it like Freefall Tower, the big one with the big tower?
Small film, most profitable film ever made.
Paranormal Activity.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it.
Oh, good. I like that. I see what you mean. The tiny casts.
Tiny casts.
I thought you were just giving me tiny casts for big films. When you said Robert Redford, I was like, I'm never going to get that. But I see.
There's only one film with just Robert Redford in it.
Yeah.
I thought I'd twist it up for you. You seem a little bit disappointed.
No, I was just a bit slow.
It happened through you. Yeah. Anyway, guys, that was the game for today. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Pulp Kitchen. Don't forget, we post new episodes of this podcast every single Wednesday.
And guys, please continue to support us. If you do, on Patreon, where you get exclusive access to our exclusive show, Double Take, talking about all the latest film news and gossip. And also, please continue to support us on social media. We really appreciate it. Keep an eye out on wonderful film bites we are putting out there, and story posts from amazing events we go to. It's where we're happening. It's pretty cool. James, anything else for the people at home?
If you want to support us, the best way to do that is to check out Double Take. It's an entire new...
I've just turned it on.
I know, but I'm just...
I see. I'm sorry. I thought you'd figure... I know, because you're checking.
That being said, if you do want to support us, checking out Double Take on our Patreon would be the best way to do that. It really does make a massive difference to what we're doing here, and it just makes everything that we do a lot better. So if you do enjoy what we do, if you ever enjoyed what we do and you fancy throwing us a bone, please do head over there. There's loads of amazing content and one-offs and fun things to have there. Plus, you get priority access to book tickets for our live shows. You get much better access to us on comments and emails. So please do have a look if that means anything to you.
And people of London and the surrounding area, please, and further afield, please come and visit the Pulp Kitchen Pub Quiz. Tickets only available for the 9th of December now, but still available. The 2nd has sold out, but the 9th of December is still free. Last time in the summer, there was a group of people there from France who were just over in London for a week, and they just wanted to do something fun, came over for the pub quiz. I love that. Do the same. See you on the 9th, hopefully.
Take care, guys. Have a good week.